Hi yogis. So welcome to my little chat about body proportion in your practice. So you may have seen my stories or heard about all the research that I've been doing lately into body proportion and wondered what it's all about and why I'm doing it. So this basically comes from me investigating why my body likes or doesn't like or performs well or struggles in a posture. So it's actually been beneficial to me to look at other practitioners and look at their body proportions and see how they fare in the same postures and work it out from there. So one thing that happens in our practice, especially if you have a dynamic practice, is that the body undergoes physical changes. So we may lose excess fat, we may tone our muscles, and we may feel lighter, healthier in our bodies, but there are a few things that will never change. So the structure of your bones, the way the bones join together, the shapes of the bones themselves, the lengths, and the proportions of the bones to the other bones in the body. You could also add to this some natural kind of characters of your body, widths of shoulders, widths of hips, the thickness of the waist naturally, or the thighs, and all of these things are kind of more or less unchangeable. So we have to learn to work with them. And once you actually realize what body type you have, practice is a lot nicer. We're a lot kinder. We're a lot less wanting on the mats and more kind of focused on what we're actually doing to our body and why, and how that pose should feel regardless of the variation that we're using for it. So science says there is an actual average human body kind of measurement proportion data out there, and the Ashtanga practice, if you look at successful, I want to say successful practitioners in the sense that they manage to more or less kind of come to grips with all the poses as they arise and eventually, make their way to the next progress or the next series. If you look at these practitioners, they mostly have longer limbs and smaller torsos, meaning they're a little bit more agile on the mat. They can find more extension through the limbs and they're able to perhaps support the weight of the body easier on the limbs because it weighs less and make the body smaller in poses that need flexion or arm balance or dynamic transitions. So one thing that's often discussed in class and everywhere is the external rotation of your hips and the ability to externally rotate. Another thing that we talk about a lot is having these long limbs, but what we don't discuss really is the length of your head, body, torso compared to the length of your legs. And actually you can get away with not noticing this right through your standing postures. If you practice vinyasa, maybe you haven't really given a lot of thought to this, but as you come to deeper postures and floor-based postures and dynamic transitions and postures that require you to become smaller and the body becomes closer to the legs, you start to kind of encounter difficulty according to your different body types. So just to cover this, obviously if you're longer in the limbs, you're going to be higher off the floor. So it's going to be harder for you to reach your toes or the floor. In your folds, in your standing poses, you may have a longer stance to in fact ground, for example, your hand in Trikonasana. In Prasaritas, the wide-legged folds, you actually might accept that even with a fully extended spine, you're not going to reach the floor here unless you do the splits. But on the floor, longer limbs can help you. For example, if I had an elbow bend here in Dandasana, I would be able to lift higher off the floor in my L-tip, I think we call that. Meaning there's more space under my butt for transitions for swinging through the back and up and around, or wherever you're going to go. So to figure out what body shape or proportion you have according to the average, you want to measure your whole height and then your seated height, deduct one away from the other, and this will give you the length of your legs. Now, I asked a lot of you to do this, and you're probably wondering what happened to those measurements that I collected and those questions I asked you. So just to share, science says it's normal to have legs and torso, torso, neck and head, equal in length, so ratio of 1 to 1, or ratio of 1 to 1.15, meaning your legs are 15% longer than your torso. So either 1 to 1 or 1.15 to 1. I'm in fact the other way around. So you can have a chuckle. My torso length is actually 15% longer than my legs. And this made me happy. This made me realise, that's why I find this stuff hard. And it's okay, now I have an answer. So, I also asked a lot of you which poses you love and which poses you hate. The love poses were all different. I suppose we all have different personalities and characters and things in there as well. But the hate poses were always the same. Now, to make you feel better, the hate poses you mentioned were always the really challenging, difficult poses of the primary series, the peak postures. Poses like, Bhujapidasana and the jump. I'm not going to do it, but where you're asked to jump around your hands, land in the shape. The postures that follow on from that, so Tidibhasana or Firefly, Kurmasana, the turtles, basically all these really hard things we have to do where we jump from one position and land in a completely different position with a different hip rotation, a different spinal position, landing on our arms, or working the postures without those transitory breaths, those inhale prepares, exhale into the pose. They all disappear in the peak of the primary series, and many of the postures actually go straight into one another. So a lot of bandha and focus and strength and flexibility. So it's fine, everyone finds those things really hard. But they are, of course, easier if you have a body proportion where you're more towards the average. So that is legs and torso the same or legs longer. This is because your torso fits more inside the length of your femur. So you can see here I'm quite far off, even if so the ability to get the shoulder and the knee close together has been a game changer for me. So if naturally your shoulder and your armpit, or your whatever you want to call it, if the height is a similar height to the knee or the same height, you have a lot more chance of trying to get the body successfully to do these difficult, challenging positions. Now, you can get away with, as I said, not really noticing this stuff in your standing poses and Surya Namaskar, but on the seat it really comes into play, especially with your picking up your ability to get off the floor. If you have longer arms and shorter torso, you're winning. If you have neither of those things, it's very difficult to clear space off the floor for your body. And where did I want to go with this? So I've been looking at Marichasana C, and different variations of this one. And you see actually the curtain's really good because it's letting the light through, and you can see this gap I have between my armpit and my knee. So this is going to make it really hard for me to bind or continue the pose into its next phase. So there's various things I've been doing here to close this space, but I'm going to save those for another video. But we first encounter the kind of femur torso thing. There is one standing pose, I lied, in your Parsvakonasana. It comes again in Maritasana. A comes again in C, and then it kind of keeps coming. So Pushasana is a good one. Yeah. So if your shoulder and your knee are not close together, you're not going to be able to just take a clean twist and bind around that shank, that support of your femur. You're actually going to have to come into flexion. And flexion with a twist is not necessarily nice and can lead to compression at the front of the chest. But anyway, I'm taking you into other things I want to talk about on another day. So guys, let me know how you feel about this. Let me know if you've looked at this as well or wondered. I'm super interested to hear what you say. And happy practice.